action.
All right. Podcast. I have no idea what podcast number it is before you even ask.
Let's go with 16. I think I was 15.
16 sounds right.
Yep. Knocking them down. So it is what?
The 3rd?
November 3rd.
Yep.
And we're going to talk about some mishaps you had with your camera and kind of go over your hunt. And I guess hop right into when the date was and let's go over it.
Yeah, so it was, I'd have to think back. Going into early muzzleloader season, this is the first year I have not had really a deer to hunt. And I've never hunted the early muzzleloader season, but the weather was there and I thought maybe we could put something together. Like I said, I didn't have a deer in mind. So, where do you start? I started with some of my river bottom ground that I kind of figured, if there was something going to stroll through, it was going to be there. And what I quickly realized is that the reason I hadn't been finding many deer is I'm having some issues with EHD. So I had a farm I just went to here last week, jumped in the creek, had to walk it for 100 yards up before I got to the stand. I found 4 dead does. So, it's been a pretty rough year. So going into early muzz, day 1, evening sat right away. I mean, I had deer everywhere. I couldn't have asked for a better sit, and I couldn't have asked for better weather really throughout the season. So like I said, day 1 sat, had a beautiful 9-pointer. I had a couple pictures of come by. He was at 350, worked off. I didn't really get a super good look at him. And then he strolled all the way into 20 yards. The footage is pretty cool. I mean, he gets pretty up close and personal. If I had a guy there with me, I probably would have thought a little more about shooting him, but, day 1, I kind of figured we'd let him walk. So, rolling into day 2, same kind of thing, hunted a different piece. Did a morning sit. We had pretty good temperature drop that day. Went in on a piece of public. I got in a little bit late. Walk was like 2.5 miles back in there. And I had Colton with me, and he's down at the bottom of the tree. I'm getting a couple things situated, and it's just starting to get light. I look up, there's a good deer out there with a couple does. So I told him, leave everything, bring the camera, get up the tree. So we get up there, get the camera on him. And I mean, same boat, probably within 5 inches of the one from the day before. So we're filming him. I think if that deer walks perfectly broadside in at 50 yards with a muzzleloader, I probably would have shot him, but not super ideal. Probably could have killed the deer, but we decided to let him go. Going into that night, hopped over to a new piece of public. I hunted a turnip patch. Colton hunted a different one. Saw some decent deer, nothing too exciting. Rolling into day 3, he went back down to the turnip patches. I went and hunted a piece of private that I got. I had a good sit. I had deer move super late that night. Everything came out after dark, but I had 3 deer in there that I was interested in, and they were all in the field. I've got some trail camera pictures. I go check the camera. I think I moved some brush or something, or threw some buck bomb in the scrape. I don't remember, but that deer's in there 11 minutes after that. So it was, it was a fun sit. But halfway through, Colton calls me. He's like, "Hey, I found a really good one down here on this piece that you sat." He sat probably 100 yards from where I had sat the day prior. So I'm like, okay, well, send me a picture of him. Sends me a picture, and this is like with an iPhone camera, like a good picture of the deer. I'm like, well, how close is he? He's like, God, he's probably 70 yards. I'm like, well, why didn't you shoot him? He goes, well, I couldn't get an arrow through there. But if you can, how the iPhone cameras are, if you can take a quality picture and be able to zoom in and actually see what the deer is, you're pretty close. So we had a pretty good idea of where he was at. We didn't know if he was really living there or if he was kind of coming through, because it was the first real good cold front that we had seen. So the next day we had a south wind. I went in there not knowing too much about where he was and where he wasn't. Got in there, sat that morning. Me and Colson actually saw a deer he's hunting now. Really good 10-pointer. I had a buddy pick a shut up to him last year. Last year he was probably 145 to 150 inches, and this year he's probably in that 155 to 160 range as a 4.5-year-old. So we saw him, knew there was another one in there, so we kind of let him go. I stayed in there the rest of the day, just because I didn't want to leave and potentially bump that deer out of there, because I had no idea where this deer was spending any time. Sat the rest of the day super slow, didn't really see any other good deer. Roll into day 5, and same thing. We have a south wind. I hunted that evening, and I don't think I seen a deer day 5. Rolling into day 6, that north wind came back, and I told Colson, if we're going to kill him, it's going to be today, just because that's what you saw him on. And it was 5 o'clock when Colson saw him. So we know that deer feels pretty comfortable in that area. So we get settled in. I get in there about 3:30. I sit tight for a while. Actually, I hunted that morning. Rewind. I hunted the morning. So that morning on the south wind, I caught 2 bucks going back to bed. One, we later got pictures of, nice, decent 10-pointer with some really good potential, and then a really good 9-pointer. Deer I probably would have shot. I was on the ground, didn't have a super good opportunity to actually making anything happen, but he was at 20 yards. So it was super, super exciting. So rolling into that afternoon, I get there 3:30. Colson's actually sitting behind me just in case that 9-pointer comes back by. So he's back behind me in a tree stand. I'm to a point where I can see all the way down this edge where this deer potentially could come from, right? I've got a bunch of willow trees where I've got almost a little maze cut through it. And it turned out beautiful how everything worked out, because wherever that deer went, I could probably get in a position to shoot him. I had a good idea of where he would be. He was following a river bottom down. So what we did was we kind of sat tight, 5 rolls around, 5:30 rolls around, no deer. So I'm a little curious if that deer's close enough to hear a grunt tube, because it's been blowing and blowing for the last 2 days and finally stops. So I rip on my grunt tube. 10 minutes later, I kind of see something up on the riverbank, and it's something I had thought I had looked at for a couple days prior. Didn't think anything of it. And then I look over probably 2 minutes later, and it's him picking his head up. You just see that frame come up. I immediately knew what it was. So as fast as I can get the cameras recording, get my gun up, look at him, he goes back into some brush. I knew right away what deer it was, so I'm holding tight at this point. I don't know if he's going to keep going to the east. I don't know if he's going to come back down where he was. And, I wait a couple minutes, and then I see a willow tree shaking. I'm like, okay, so he must have heard the grunt, and he's back there tearing up a tree, rubbing one up. And so I hold back, wait a little bit, pops out. Couldn't have drew it up any better. I pulled the gun up, 65 yards, 70-yard shot. First shot, my gun clicks. For a while, I thought on those CVA Paramounts, they ask that you load them. Their preferred primer of choice are the Federals. I've been loading with CCI. I thought that was the issue. Looking back on the footage, what it is my bolt on my gun was up a little bit. So that firing pin couldn't reach the full length to get there. So that click goes off, and he has no idea what's going on. I open the breech, look, I see it hit it, and I've had this happen on inline muzzleloaders several times. So I'm like, well, I'll try this primer again. If I need to reload it, I will. So I shut it, saddle, gun goes off, collapses front shoulder. He runs, falls off the riverbank, falls down in the river, and he comes up side of the river, and he's starting to lose it, just falls off the back of the riverbank.
Right.
And that's when I kind of lost it.
Yeah, he was a big framed wide deer, and that deer is super impressive. And because that's the one that Colson had seen earlier.
Yep, Colson had seen him a couple nights earlier. Yeah.
Okay, so then you shoot the deer. It's all awesome. You go up, take some pictures, and now what?
Yeah. So I mean, going back a little bit, I'm ecstatic, right? I just watched this deer do backflip off the riverbank. He's laying on the sandbar dead. Colson gets down out of the tree stand. We're celebrating. I look over and I can hear him going through the brush and he's gone. And I can see the sandbar for a ways. I'm like, all right. Like, that's a little bit concerning. I thought he was dead. I mean, he just fell off this big embankment. And so like, all right, we'll go back to the vehicle. Went back to the vehicle, watched the shot back. Looked at everything looked good. I mean, collapsed at front shoulder. He's quartering slightly too. Deer's dead. So he had a long pack out. We unpack our packs, go back in, pick up blood. We're down around the river where he's running up the sandbar. And I've got my camera out, right, because I'm filming some of the blood recovery. And I trip, get it a little wet. I don't think anything of it, right? I pull the SD card out. I wipe it off. Camera's kind of being finicky. I tried drying it out. I threw some one of my shirts around it, stuffed it in my bag, pulled out my my Canon. I pulled the Canon out, started filming with that, did the rest of the recovery with that and my phone. Okay. So little do I know that camera is shot. So I was fine if I would have been filming on an SD card. But the problem was I was running the same SD card I had taken to Idaho. So I maxed it out. But that camera's got internal storage on it. I go back to watch it. I can't get the camera on. So I've been trying stuff for here over a week, and it's shot. I mean, I'm not going to be able to pull anything off it, I don't think. So.
Yeah. So that was on the 19th, correct? When you shot that deer the same day I shot?
I mean, we probably shot those deer within 20 minutes of each other, I would guess.
Yeah, our Snapchat group was blowing up, I remember.
Yeah, yep.
Good day.
Yeah, I saw there was a live video on the Snapchat, and I jumped on, and you're walking up on this 190-inch deer, so I'm just like, oh, man, what a night for me to kill a big one,
Yeah, it's a great night.
Yeah, it was.
So can you take your camera in somewhere and see if they can pull something off of it, like electronic?
I called in and they said you can't pull the internal storage out of it. If I can get the camera to roll over, then I'll be able to get it.
Okay.
But the problem is I can't. I've soaked it in rice. I've stuffed cotton. I've actually taken the camera apart and put cotton in there trying to soak anything out of it. I mean, I can't even get the camera to roll over. I've had it flutter early on, but it seems like the more I messed with it, I've never even had it flutter now.
Okay.
But,
yeah, I wonder if you take it to like some sort of shop that deals with all that thing, like of Christensen Photo or something like that, where they can get in there and see what they can do. Who knows? I mean,
yeah,
that's what I look at. The worst case scenario, it just doesn't work.
right.
Well, it already doesn't work. So
right.
Yeah.
What's the harm?
Yeah,
What's the harm of, and I can't imagine that they would charge too terribly much for any of it, if they're going to find out probably in a big hurry whether it's going to be usable or not.
Right.
The coolest thing is that you tried and you had that footage. That it sucks that it got ruined. Potentially you'll never see it again, but you have that deer and you have that memory that's going to hang on your wall.
Yeah.
It's like you got a couple spots back there. You can put them right behind your head.
Yeah. I've got a couple spots for him.
Cool.
The rough part about the whole thing is where we had planned on that deer coming out. I mean, Colson could have had beautiful footage of the deer. We just simply didn't come out there, right? And he comes out on the other side, and from there, it was a second angle camera that I had set up. I had a tripod set up with a camera facing me, and then I had one facing the other way that was kind of panned out a little bit. So it was by no means a super close-up shot, but I mean, at 70 yards, I could tell that I'd collapsed his shoulder just from the footage.
Right.
And it's almost worse that I got to watch it
Yeah.
a couple times, and now I can't see it because I know exactly what it is.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's it's so hard. I mean, it's hard enough to kill a big deer as it is, and then find one, and then you add in all the, well, we're going to film it all, and then film everything, and then you and then you do it and it works, and then just
Yeah.
some fluky thing happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, we are hunters first and videographers second, and we like to tell a story, and it just kind of sucks that people can't see that, and you can't relive that, every time you want to go back and watch them get shot. So
Exactly. And I mean, I started filming when I was 14, just for my own thing. I love looking back on stuff like that. A deer on the wall, that tells, I mean, there's a lot of memories there, but filming a hunt, you can go back and you can relive that. Right.
Oh, yeah.
So I've done it for a long time, and I've had it cost me a lot of deer. And, when it comes together and then it's kind of pulled from you, it's probably one of the lowest of lows, but man, it was a fun hunt nonetheless. I had a good friend there with me, so it was fun to kind of experience everything with him. So,
and it's a big deer, really big.
Yeah, that's the biggest one that I've ever killed on a public land. So, man, it was a lot of fun. And the funny thing is, we didn't obviously have any history on the deer. My boss actually knew that deer really well. So that deer was living on some private years ago, and he had hunted that private for years and years. And they have sheds all the way back to him from 2019. And in 2019, that deer was around 155 inches, 160 inches. So, to 2023, they think he's probably 8.5 years old. It was hard to tell. I knew the deer was pretty mature when I got up to him. I didn't know he was probably that old, but I mean, they've got, I think, 9 sheds off the deer. Last year, the deer actually peaked at 7.5. He looked identical to what he is now. But he had like an inline, a split G2, a split brow tine. I mean, he just had another 15 inches of junk on him. So it's kind of crazy what these deer can do year to year.
Right. Yeah. And you talk to a lot of people, and some deer will, it takes that long for them to peak out. That's 7, 8 years old, and other ones get their giant rack at 4, and then then that's it.
Yeah.
Or they never get big. Like I had a buck tonight come out, and he's at least 5 years old as an 8-point. He might hit 130 maybe, and he'll never be more than that. So.
Yeah. I got a deer in the same boat right now, just a heavy 9-pointer, 3.5, 4.5, 5.5. I don't think from 3.5 to 5.5. I don't think that deer's grown more than 15 inches.
Yeah. Some deer don't have it. That's for sure. So.
Yeah. And some deer grow 35 inches in a year.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And that's, I mean, I think that's one of the coolest thing about deer is you just never know. You'll have some deer that are just, they make that, 15, 20% gain over 5 years every single year. And you can watch them grow 10 to 15 inches. And sometimes they hit it just right and just throw on 30 inches. And, you get fortunate enough to shoot them that year. So
you have a bow tag, right? So you're still hunting?
I do. Yeah. I didn't plan on hunting tonight, but, I ended up doing a hang and bang on some public. Found a really good pinch on Onyx. Went in there tonight. Had a little button buck come underneath me, but God, it was so quiet tonight. There was no wind, and I'm walking through this native grass, and it's so loud. And I'm like, I got to blow every deer out. Possibly that is within 500 yards. I go in, put a stand up. I'm sitting there, had that little buck come underneath me, and then I can hear one back in the timber, so I'm looking that way, and then I hear the corn rustle behind me. There's probably 250 acres of standing corn behind me, and I turn around, and there's a beautiful deer. He's got one really good 5-point side, and then the other side he's got a 12-inch spike, and he's got junk coming off the bases, and that deer came in tonight at 12 yards, and I really was considering shooting him just because.
Sign me up.
Oh man,
I love that trashy stuff.
Yeah, I was pretty excited because the deer came in and he wouldn't let me get away with anything. I mean, he saw me move my camera arm trying to get on him, and he's obviously all the way around this tree, so it's as hard as I can to get around to film him. I just touch my bow, and he sees the bottom of my cam move, and we had to stare down. I'm only 15 feet up, and he's staring me down at 12 yards. I mean, it was pretty exciting tonight. Didn't pull a trigger, but man, it was a lot of fun, a lot of adrenaline. So
Cool.
So about them 9 sheds, you
he,
getting those?
no, I mean, he wants to hang on to them. I know. I mean, I've given away a lot of sheds. Some really good ones that were hard to let go. And ironically enough, I gave him a set of sheds to a deer that he was hunting. He hadn't even killed it yet, but I gave him a set of sheds that he was hunting at the time.
Really?
He did end up killing the deer. I mean, the sheds I found was probably 100 upper 40s 9-pointer, really good browse, and then he ended up killing the deer, and the deer was 172 inches, I think, the following year. But yeah,
I'm
I don't know.
in his shoes, and because I've killed 2 deer with 8 to 9 sheds, and I'm thinking you give him some time and maybe he'll come around. Just
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was probably one of those that it was he wanted to kill that deer, was hoping to kill that deer, and it's all, not butthurt, but it's just like, man, you invest that much time and that many years into pursuing a deer, man, you don't just lose it over. You either are like, screw it, I'm done with it, don't ever want to see these sheds again, or you need a little bit of time. But I bet you give him a year, maybe 6 months, a year, something like that. Just come around and be like, hey, and just talk to him, be honest, and a lot of things will happen. Like that mini maybe buck I've chased. Greg and I were just talking on the phone today. There's one of our buddies has 1 antler off of him, and I never killed the deer. We don't know whatever happened to him, but I have 7 sheds off of him, and I'm missing 1. And our buddy's got it, and he has never said no, but he's never offered it up either. So
yeah,
and there's also has something to say too with how big the sheds are. Like, I mean, you said he was at what, 6 and 7? They're pretty good size. So
yeah, and I mean, one thing to note too. I mean, he missed that deer last year. That deer was 185 inches. And those sheds are spread out between him and his brother. It's not like he has all of them.
Gotcha.
So, it's a sticky situation, but I mean, I know them pretty well. I don't blame them. I know people that have held on to sheds and not gave them. Yeah, there's no hard feelings if they want to hang on to them. I've given plenty away. That's just how I see it, but not everyone sees it that way. So
yeah, the first year I shot the big one, there was 5 different people had sheds to them, and I got all the sheds. And then the 6th guy, or the 5th guy, I had to buy the shed, and I traded him a stand, and did some haggling that way. So
was that at the Deer Classic one year?
It was 90 inch.
Yeah, that was new. That was when the shed from the year before he killed him. Greg had the one side, and then the other side.
There's just a few.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, and that's how I view it. Is, man, the story's over. What do you do? Like, yeah, they're big sheds. I mean, obviously, the giant pile of sheds. I love antlers.
But you got deer, so I mean, in the long run.
Exactly. But at the same time, I'm like, man, if and I've given sheds away too. I gave a 170-inch set away to one of my neighbors. It was the biggest set I'd ever found at the time, and he killed the deer the next year. Didn't say anything about it, and I saw it in his house. I'm like, when'd you shoot that? He's like, yeah, this last season. I'm like, I have a set of sheds from the year before. He's like, man, I looked all over for him and just left it at that. And then the next time I went down there, I gave them to him. Never asked anything in return, and he's always been good. So,
and that's the way I've always seen it too. I mean, I've had deer that I've hunted for years, 3-4 years, right? And you find their sheds and you never kill them. And a lot of times you don't know what happens to them. But, in his perspective, I mean, he hunted this deer over a long period of time, and he had some close calls with him. He's got all his sheds. I went in there, didn't even know about the deer, and killed him in a few days, So, they probably mean a lot more to him than they would mean to me. I mean, they'd be cool to sit there and compare him, but
Yep.
you know, it's kind of a different perspective when
No,
you
that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah,
100%.
but
Like
at
sure.
least he knows someone. He knows the guy. He knows what happened to the deer. You shot it. It's not some Joe Blow. It's a guy that he might respect you. You respect him, and you have a relationship. So that's a plus of my. I mean, if it was some out of stater that shot or found out, it's kind of a cool dynamic to know that you have the deer. So
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. I agree.
Yeah.
well, it's about bedtime if we're gonna get up.
Yeah,
I think
especially
so
with all of
too.
us sitting here with bow tags in our pockets.
Yeah.
We should probably
I
try to do something about that the next week or so.
Yeah. I'm in a tough boat. I mean, I'm waiting for them bucks to get off that first stone and really start venturing out because I really don't have anything.
I'm 100%. Those big bucks are already on does, and they're gonna come off here every day. Every day there's gonna be a big deer jumping does that they've bred and going to the next one. So it's the next 14 days. It's just gonna get better every day.
Yeah.
In 3 days, we'll be singing a different tune, sitting all day and going that route.
Yeah.
Yep. Middle of the timber in a pinch somewhere, and just eating Christmas trees and.
Yeah, I've got 1 week left here in Iowa, and then next Saturday the rifle season kicks up in Missouri, and I actually have a pretty good deer I'm hunting down there, so I'm pretty excited to go down there and hunt him. So
nice.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, should be. Hopefully, I can kill one before that, so I'm not kicking myself when my cams are going off back here. But
right, that's always what happens. So
yeah,
sweet. Well, awesome. Thanks for jumping on here, and congrats on the deer again. And we'll hopefully have some bow footage to post from all of us sooner rather than later.
Yeah. Shoot the first one. So
right. Awesome. All right, guys. Thanks.
Yep.
Good luck, guys.
Yeah, you too. See ya.